Hello everyone and welcome back to another tutorial. In this video we will be working on creating lights in the scene using Corona lights, Corona sun and Corona sky. This video has been requested a lot on my YouTube channel and on my email, and I'm happy that I'm taking requests from you guys. And if you have another request, please make sure to drop it down in the comments below. If you're new here, please make sure to subscribe, like if you enjoyed this video. And without further ado, let's get started. So I have here a small living room, a basic living room with two openings, one from the front and one from the side, and a simple Corona camera with no change to the settings. So if I come here to my Corona Interactive, okay, you can see that it's fully black because I have no light source in the scene at all. So when you first work on your scene, you focus the most on exterior lighting up your scene. So we're going to need our light source from the exterior, and we will be using Corona Sky. So to use Corona Sky, go to your render setup and select scene, go to scene environment and select use Corona. You can see that there's some lights emitting from the outside, but that won't be enough. So we're going to type in Corona Sky and select it. Now we have our scene that it's fully lit up from the exterior, and the only thing missing is Corona Sun. But before this, let's explore our Corona Sky. So we're going to grab this and copy it as instance. You can see here that we have different types of Corona Sky, and you can increase the intensity or decrease it. And you can change the horizon blur, which makes the horizon sharper or more blur depending on the value you set here. But for this scene, I'll be using an intensity of something like 1.2 or 1.3 because it's a small interior and we need more lights to be emitted. So that's actually everything about Corona Sky, sorry. So we can use a rendering environment. You can select Corona Sky from here, or you can actually grab any HDRI to set it, or you can simply go to your render setup and assign them from there. Now let's check our environment tab again and select HDRI. You can download any HDRI from Google. There's different websites where you can download pretty cool HDRIs. I'll leave some in the description down below so you can check them out. So let's use this for example now. You can see that the environment has been set into the background. We can also drag and drop this into our material editor and make some change to the tiling, for example. Let's make it to 2. And we can also make a change to the intensity of it by adjusting the output and the RGB level to something like 2 or whatever you need for your scene. That's pretty much it for the environment tab using Corona Sky and an HDRI. So let's clear this for now and use Corona Sky. Okay. Now another light source you can use into your scene is Corona Sun. We're going to grab this, go to the light bulb here, scroll down for Corona Sun, drag and release. There's a cool feature that's hidden inside Corona Sun is that when you lower the sun down, you can see that it's creating a sunset vibe. And when you take it forward up, you can see that it's casting light as it's midday. So for the Corona Sun settings, you can increase the intensity as much as you want or decrease it as much as you want. I'm going to take an intensity of 0.5 for the scene, I think. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Okay, and you have your size here where you can increase it to make the sun disk bigger or decrease it to make it smaller. The smaller the size is, the sharper the details and the shadows. The higher the value, you can see that the shadows are blurred now. And for this one, I'll be using a value of something like 12, where it's a balance between sharp and blurry. And it will be casting light nicely and realistically. You can also change the direct input to any color you want, or assign a Kelvin temperature like something like 3000, let's say, for example. Okay, but for this, I'm going to stick with realistic and go back to my camera. So now we have two different light sources coming from the exterior. We have the Corona sky and we have the Corona sun, which actually is pretty enough to light up the scene. Now let's explore different settings. We have our uh, bending lamp from here that we can assign light for it. Let's go back to the bulb here, Corona light. Let's choose disk for this one. Go to the middle and draw a disk. Go to front view and drag it to inside the pendant lamp. Okay. For this one, I'm going to disable Corona Sun so you can actually see better. And I'm going to disable also Corona Sky so you can see it even more. Okay, now we have our light. We can also increase the intensity, something like 100. We can change the color of it, maybe something red, for example. We can change the Kelvin temperature to something, let's say 4500, which I think it's pretty nice for this scene. Yeah, 4500. And the most important part of it is the directionality. So if I crank this up to 1, you can see it's narrow and it's casting like as it's a spotlight. If you increase the directionality, it will be looking like a cone that it's fading away to the sides. So this one I'll be using something like 0.4, which I think it's pretty good. And the Kelvin temperature of 4500. You can also set an IS light from the IS library that comes with Corona. It's like an effect for the light. You can choose from bold, white soft, white bright. Let's choose white bright for example. You can see it's casting nicely, but it's more for a spotlight. Let's choose another one. You can see this one. Let's check bold for example. You can see it's a bold light now. Narrow bright for example. But for this one, we don't need any IS light. Okay, now we have our floor lamp here. We can also use another disk for it. Okay, go back to front view and take this up. Let's make this one a little warmer, something like 3000. So we can have different varieties in lights. We have this warm, a little bit warmer, and we have the bright lights coming from the sun and from the sky outside. So for this one, we're going to choose an intensity of something like 40 maybe. Let's try 50. Okay, I think 50 is good. And the directionality is something like 0 is looking nice. Okay, we don't need it to be bright, we need it as a soft light casting on the sofa here. Okay, and there's also settings in the light that you need to take care of. Is you can uncheck visible directly, so it won't be shown in the camera. Visible in reflections, so you won't see it in the reflections, and visible in refractions, so you won't see them in refractions. But I think for now we're good because those are solid materials here. Okay, on the table right here we can see that we have two candles. We have one here and one there. Okay, so let's go to our material editor, grab a plane, and go to top view, auto grid, and make a small plane. Let's drag it down to the candle. Okay, I'm going to teach you how to create a realistic looking candle flame using only Corona light material. I'm going to rotate this one and make it smaller, of course, and assign it to middle of the candle. Go back to it. Okay, something like this, so it'd be looking like it's burning and more realistic. Okay, I'm gonna remove the override from the plane so you can see it. Back to our material editor, we're going to choose Corona light material and assign it. Oops, I assigned it to the whole object. I'm going to undo this. Okay, so let's assign the Corona light. And remove also this one from the material override so you can actually see the reflections. Okay, as you can see we have our plane lit up here. I'm going to disable the Corona camera lock so you can actually see it better here. Okay, we have our plane all lit up. We're going to grab our bitmap and select our candle flame. You can find a candle flame from Google. Just type in candle flame and this will show up. We're going to select it and assign it to our text map. Okay, so now it's on the text map. And now for the opacity, I'm gonna drag and drop it down so all the black will fade away from the sides. Okay, now we have our flame looking pretty good. Okay, the only thing missing is our Corona light as a sphere, so it will be casting some lights. We're going to assign a Kelvin temp or something like 2500 and remove visibility. oops, from directly only. Okay, and make this a little bit smaller. Okay, now we have our realistic candle flame using a simple technique. Back to activating Corona Sun and activating our Corona Sky. Okay, so for now everything is looking pretty good. We have different light sources in our scene and it's looking realistic. So for the final part and your lighting, we can work on our indirect. We're going to need another Corona light material and assign it to our indirect box right here. Make sure it's set to emit on both sides with an intensity of 10. Let's remove all override material so we can actually see everything in the scene now. Okay, let's give it a minute. Okay, so for this one, let's decrease it to something like 4. Okay, and change the color temperature to something like orange. Okay, that's a little too much. All right. We have now all the light sources in our scene. We have the indirect, one pending and one floor lamp, the candle on the table, and Corona Sky and Corona Sun. Now we just have to tweak this a little bit using the render setup. We can we can increase the exposure to something like 0.3 or something like 0.5 actually. We can highlight compress this to something like 3. Let's try 4. Let's go with 5. Increase the contrast to something like 1.5. We can play with the white balance, something like 6,800 maybe, or 7,000. Let's try 7,000. Okay, so 7,000 seems good. 7,500. This will give us a more looking, or maybe it's like a contrast to yellow, between yellow and white coming from the sky. We can enable filtering. We can use different filters. Maybe choose. Actually, the first one seems pretty nice for this scene, so I'm gonna choose it. Yeah, the first one is looking amazing. Okay, maybe decrease the opacity to something like 0.7. Use some sharpening, but remove the blur. Enable bloom and glare. Give the bloom a value of something like 0.6. And decrease the glare to something like 0. Let's say 0.3 maybe. Let's try 0.4. Yeah, 0.4 seems nice. Let's go back to our indirect light and give it a punch to 9. Okay, this is looking pretty good so far. And As simple as that, we have our scene all lit up nicely, looking realistic. We have our sun, our sky, and our inside all lit up using some basic corona lights. And now we have our candle, which is pretty easy to set up. And I think I'm going to leave this image down in the description below so you can use it in all your renders. So guys, this is basically everything to cover up all the lights and creating a realistic scene using Corona lights and Corona sky in addition to Corona sun. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like, subscribe, and that is all. I'll see you in the next one.